Hello, Frequent Flower subscribers. It's Sarah with Main Street Florist, and this month we're working with some fun flowers again. We have some Asiatic lilies. If you've been with us for a while and you've been in the subscription service for a while, you have probably used these before. Just a heads up, Asiatic lilies don't have quite as strong as a scent as an oriental lily. We know we did one subscription with orientals and people weren't a fan of the smell. Asiatic's fragrance are not as strong. But with any lily, they can be toxic to pets and to children or anyone who might decide these are a tasty treat. So keep them out of reach of pets or children or anyone that might be in danger of that. We're also working with some shamrock hydrangea. And this month we also have some monstera leaves, which these are a personal favorite of mine. So I'm excited to work with those. So I am starting with my vase of clean, fresh water with my pack of flower food already in there. I've chosen a container this time that has a little bit larger of a wide mouth because we have larger hydrangea stems that we're going to base it with. And we've got so many blooms of the lilies to work with. This is just our 10 stem subscription. So if you have got a 15 or 20 stem subscription, you're gonna have a lot of flowers this month. So you might break yours up into a few arrangements. And these monstera leaves too are gonna help us create our grid and really fill in this larger mouth container. You can certainly work with a narrower vase, but it might be a little bit more difficult to get all of those stems in there. So we're gonna begin by just cleaning our flowers. So with the lilies, there's a little bit more work involved than some of the other flowers. Mostly we want to make sure we're taking off all of the lower foliage. Any of this foliage might fall below the water line and will cause bacteria to grow. The other thing you're going to want to do is to keep an eye out for the pollen that's inside. Now, if you want to use gloves or a Kleenex, I certainly recommend doing that. The pollen can stain your hand. But before we even arrange, we're going to remove any of the pollen that we can get out. Sometimes people say by removing this, the flower lasts longer. To be really honest, I'm not sure if that is true. The number one reason we remove the pollen is because once it starts to get kind of that dusty powder form, it can really stain a table or a tablecloth, anything that it falls on. It just keeps your arrangement a little bit cleaner, a little bit nicer, longer. So I like to remove it early when the pollen is not to that stage of it being dusty. It just is a little bit easier to do then. And then as you start to see the lilies open up in your arrangement, then you can start to kind of remove them as you go. Now, when you receive your lilies, they may not all be open. That's great. We want to watch the process of them opening. You're going to enjoy your flowers a lot longer. If you are going to a florist or the supermarket or wherever to buy lilies and you see them fully blown open, that they're the size of your hand, just know that you are seeing them at the peak of their life and you're going to only have a few more days before they're probably really done with. So buying them in bud stage or when they're just starting to crack is really going to help you enjoy your bouquet longer. I like to kind of work with a mix of some that are a little bit more open, some that are a little tighter. So they'll all start to open at different times and it's going to feel like your arrangement is lasting a lot longer. As some blooms mature, you can just take them out of the arrangement and then still have plenty of flowers to still give you a bright, colorful bouquet for your table. If you have any petals that maybe look a little bruised, or in this case, this one's a little torn, I'm actually just going to pluck it off. It's not going to hurt the flower. It's going to make my bouquet look a little nicer, and we're just going to discard this one. When it comes to the hydrangea, when we receive it into the shop, it usually has a few larger leaves and then each little stem has a little baggie of water on the bottom. Hydrangea, it's very important that they are getting a drink constantly or they will start to wilt. So when they come into the shop, we cut off that baggie, we remove those lower leaves, and we actually dunk their heads in buckets of water for about 10 to 15 minutes. Hydrangeas will absorb from their petals as well. So when they come to us, they probably are a little thirsty, even though they have the little baggies on. So by doing that, it really kind of plumps them up. Then we actually process them by, when we cut the stem, we dip them in a solution called Quick Dip that allows them to drink faster, and then we'll place them in the water. The reason we remove those lower leaves too is because those leaves are just going to steal some of the hydration from the blooms. We really want the blooms to stand out and stay plump and full as long as possible. So that's the reason that we remove those leaves early. And just make sure that anytime you're working with hydrangea, before you place it in the water, you're giving it a nice fresh cut. If you notice your hydrangea starting to wilt a little bit, you can take it out, dunk its head for 10-15 minutes, give it another fresh cut, place it back in water, and typically it will plump back up for you again. We're gonna start by basing with our hydrangea. So I'm gonna give my hydrangea a nice clean cut. Make sure you've got clean shears or a knife or something very sharp that's gonna give you that nice clean cut. Actually, I think I cut that one a little too tall. I'm gonna go a little shorter on this one. I want my heads of my hydrangea to sit right at the lip, of my vase. What this is doing, it is starting to allow me a grid that I can place my stems into. Even the hydrangea blooms themselves help as a grid. We use this a lot when we are arranging bouquets, but also when we're arranging for weddings and bridal bouquets and wedding bouquets, we'll often do a base of hydrangea because it just makes it really simple and quick to arrange into. So now we're gonna go in with our lilies, and I've got 2 different colors here. You might have a few different colors, you might just have one, but looks like I've got 4 and 4. I'm gonna start with my pink. And I'm just gonna work my way around the vase. So since I have 4, I'm gonna kind of hit the 4 corners of my vase and then go in with my orange. And I actually think I'm gonna kind of group it so that my pink are low and my orange are a little bit higher. As I place my stems into the vase, I'm crisscrossing the stems. That's gonna help support them and help them stay in place longer. So now I'm going to this corner. I'm actually gonna go right through the middle of my hydrangea and gently kind of place it in there. I don't want to beat my hydrangea blooms up. I did a little though. Round. So we can still see the hydrangea blooms, but those lily stems are just kind of worked in between there. And these lilies are going to continue to open, and this is going to be a very full bouquet when they're all open. Now I'm going to go in with my orange lilies, and I'm going to pick my height. I'm going to keep it about this area. And this guy's going to go right in the center. And this allows me to start to see the shape of my bouquet. So I kind of started with the pink lilies, giving me the outer shape, kind of the width of the arrangement. And then now I'm going in with the orange to kind of get my height, and with the stems I have left, I'll work in between there. Placing your stems at that angle creates that grid, but that also creates that nice round shape to your bouquet so that you're not getting sort of a flat one-sided look. Of course, my middle guy doesn't want to stay put, but I think he will by the time we are finished. So sometimes I get done with an arrangement and I have to step away just to take a second look at it. As I stepped away, I saw like this fella over here is just really, really out there. So we are going to cut him down a little bit. I'm going to gently take him out and place him back in. Early on when I first started arranging, I had a florist mentor tell me to not wear out my stems. Basically, when you start to arrange and play with flowers, you're very tempted to take things in and out and in and out and in and out as you are arranging because you're not happy with the way it looks. That's what he called as like wearing out the stems. So when you're doing that, often you need to recut the stems again, so you might have to go shorter in length, but there's also a good chance that you might be beating the flowers up a little bit. So take your time, be present while you're doing this, and really think about how you're placing your stems so that you don't have to wear them out. Okay, so I took my step back, give it a good look over. I'm happier with it now. So now we have our monstera leaves to add. So these monstera leaves are focal in their own right. I love working with these. We use them a lot when we're doing tropicals, but they're also just a very eye-catching way to add kind of a modern flair to any arrangement. I think any arrangement that's got some monstera placed in there and done well, it's always going to elevate the design. If you look at these leaves, this is a younger leaf, this is an older leaf. So when a monstera plant shoots out a new leaf, it's actually a full, solid leaf. As it matures, it starts to get the split leaf look. So that's how you can tell it's a younger leaf and an older leaf. I'm gonna group these right in the front, and I don't trust myself to do it backwards on camera. But there we have it. So I noticed my orange lilies were kind of veering off to the right a little bit. That's okay. So what I thought was going to be a very round bouquet ended up a little bit more asymmetrical. So we went with that. We worked with it. We took our monstera leaves and brought it down to the other angle. So for every action, there's a reaction, and then we get this asymmetrical look rather than the typical rounder bouquet, which again, I think an asymmetrical bouquet gives you a little bit more of a modern look as well. These lilies are gonna continue to open, and this bouquet is just gonna get more and more full and lush, and it's going to be stunning. I hope you guys have fun arranging this month and working with our lilies and our shamrock hydrangea and our monstera leaves, and we'll see you next time.